Well, welcome back, everybody, to the Heroic Mindset Podcast. I'm Dr. Tom Davis here with my co-host, Larry Sunderland, and we really have an incredible show lined up for you today. We cannot wait to jump into this conversation. With us, we have Carrie Taylor, who is currently the only female coaching in men's soccer at San Diego Loyal as an assistant coach. And I tell you, she has a resume that is just filled with everything that you would ever want to do in the sport. And so we're going to get into all kinds of really, really interesting conversations. And Carrie, thank you so much for being with us. We're excited to have you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, this is fantastic. In our little home offices here, we're kind of spread out all over the world. And I think that's one of the things that's so interesting about what's been happening is that, Zoom has made it an incredible time to be able to meet new people and hear their stories. But then, of course, as we're, not everybody can see us, but we all are in our makeshift offices. Right, Larry? You doing okay in yours over there?
Yeah, I've been relegated to my car today.
You win the prize.
Yeah,
you win the prize.
I win the prize of the most unique office today, I think. We did the typical COVID thing, and my kids talked us into a puppy. So it's a little crazy in our house with our other dogs and the puppy right now. So I kind of escaped out here to the garage in my car.
Yes, the safest place and the quietest. And actually,
Yes.
good sound in a car. So, I thought we would jump in, Carrie, because maybe the thing to start with is, you have put so much effort and planning and media and everything in what you were doing to launch what was happening in San Diego. And you're supposed to have a debut season this year.
Yeah.
Right? And you were supposed to have your first game in March, and then all of a sudden, COVID happened. And
Yeah.
I'm just really curious, what was that like? Like, what happened, and where were you? And I mean, things were just about to happen at that point.
Yeah, well, actually, we did get a chance to kick off. So we had our home opener on March 7th, and then we actually flew to Tacoma and played behind closed doors on March 11th. So technically, we're in first place in the league. We can claim that. we got a win and a tie, so we're top of the table. But we got back, and we were hoping it wasn't going to be full shutdown, but obviously playing a closed door game was strange and different, and we did it, and then we came home and basically got shut down. So just like everyone else, people were doing what we can do. We were doing Zoom workouts and keeping in contact with the guys, but for us, I think the biggest issue was there was all this excitement, all this build up. I mean, we were pedal to the metal since we launched in June, just go, 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 go. And I mean, everybody's put the brakes on, but for a new franchise, a new team, new players coming together, it really, it took the wind out of our sails for a while, but, hopefully good news. We're starting small group training tomorrow, and fingers crossed we have some sort of a different inaugural season, but hopefully we can play some games behind closed doors for all of our fans and just get the momentum back as much as we can.
So, Carrie, if I can jump in here for a second, it's interesting, when things like this happen, when things out of the ordinary happen to teams. Which happens, right? And as coaches, we tend to focus on how we help the players get through it, right?
Right.
And Tom and I have spoken a little bit about those types of things in the past. I'm interested to see, because it was a new franchise, and like you said, pedal to the metal, how did you and Landon and the rest of the staff and the ownership, what did you do to kind of come together to, let's say, uplift each other and to get through that? Because, it can have an effect on you guys too, in different ways from the players, but it can have a serious effect on you guys as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think the biggest thing, and Landon's a big believer in this, is just worry about the things you can control. And, I mean, a lot of people say that, but literally that's what we've done. We've taken it day by day. We've checked in with each other. Our ownership group has been fantastic. We have Zoom happy hours with our entire staff, and luckily we're sponsored by a brewery, so we have
perfect.
We have our Stone Brewing SD Loyal happy hours. Our team manager, she's great. She checks in on the players all the time. And I think, from the start, we tried when we were building our team to focus on the culture right away, because you can't go back and like fix the culture. So like from day one, we've really tried to create a sense of family, create, like hammer in our core values, have the guys do goal setting, all of that. So I think, even though we were new and still feeling each other out, I mean, the guys came in January 20th and we stopped March 11th and went on pause. We had already created really good connections amongst the players, and, we feel like good about where we're at, because most everyone's been super positive and they're all excited to get back, and we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, you hit on something there that I think is incredibly important, and maybe people who wouldn't know you and what you're passionate about wouldn't recognize this, but this whole idea of establishing culture. Right. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite quotes is by Peter Drucker, who says that culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's a good one.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And I mean, I think about that all the time because, so much of our time goes into making plans and trying to do the right thing and creating these goals. But if you don't have the culture fit, the culture's not right, then it's self-defeating. And so would you walk us through that? I'm curious, like, because you guys are just launching out here, but you've spent a lot of time in culture and you've been creating culture. How have you done it? And what are those important things? How would somebody go about creating a kind of a culture that's really transformational?
Yeah. So, to get down to the nitty gritty, honestly, back in April or May, Landon and I sat down and we literally put a piece of sticky paper on the wall, and I asked him questions. I was like, what, tell me about your favorite coach. Tell me about your favorite team. And we were literally just writing words down and adjectives and just going through like these exercises. And I've gotten to know Landon over the past 3 years, and he's a great person to work with. And we have a great trust between us. So I was, like firing questions at him. So we just started to do that. And we wrote down like our internal mission and our vision. And we came back to, a couple of keywords, and then we revamped it. And Landon would call me and go, I want to change our mission statement. I want to change this. We've got too many bullet points. And so, I mean, it really flushed itself out through the course of a lot of thinking. So like internally within our squad, our four key values are respect, competition, gratitude, and compassion. And those really, they don't sound like a normal soccer team's thing, core values, but
I love it though.
They're very important to Landon. They're very important to all of us. And they're like, they're written on our shed outside by our locker room. We talk about it. We do a little thing every Tuesday, or we did a little thing every Tuesday at practice. Because we're the first season, we wanted the players to understand that they're building a foundation of year one. And so we call ourselves Team One. And that means something. To be the first to do anything, that means something. So the first day of practice, and Landon thought I was crazy for doing this, I said, I want to give every player a brick. And he was like, okay, I'm not sure where you're going with this. This is just trust me. So like first day of practice, we bring him in and I we do this little thing about foundation and, being the first and all that stuff. So each player got a brick and they got to lay it down on the ground, like around our training facility. And they could lay it anywhere. They could put it by the shed, they could put it by the field, they could write their name on it, they could do whatever. But we are building the foundation of our team. And then, so what we do each week is we award a new brick to a new player or a coach or a staff member who exemplifies our core values from the week before. So like, one of our players got a brick because he took one of the guys that doesn't speak English to the bank, and that's, we that's being respectful. It's understanding, like your teammates need help. That's being compassionate, all of that. So we try to do that. And now, we're on pause. So either we got to give a lot of bricks over the past couple weeks, or we'll just start fresh when we come back. But it caught on, which is the guys bought into it. And the reason we know the guys bought into it was our last game. We were in Tacoma, and one of our players was just having a lights out game, but he was doing the dirty work. He was tackling, he was tracking back, he was doing all these things. And it was the first game that he had ever started. He's from the Congo, doesn't speak English, and he was just having a match. And one of the guys on the bench turned to me and said, "If Bev doesn't get the brick for this week, I quit." And I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. Like the players, recognize that in someone else and like thought of, hey, like Bev's performance has helped building our foundation and doing, what we talk about. So it's just a little funky thing that we do, but
I love it. And one of the reasons I love it is because I think built into this idea of culture is tradition. So you're creating a tradition right from the start, from the first step onto the field. You're creating this tradition within the organization, which gets passed on, right? And it's this idea of an infinite program, right? That you continually grow, but you have these traditions that run through the culture, regardless of the players that come through. You bring that in. It's really a wonderful way to do that, Carrie. And I know, when you were speaking about the player just working so hard in that game, recalled Landon talking, not too long ago to some of our players at FC Cincinnati and talking about how your mindset of how you influence your team and how you help your team to win. It may not be by being the best player on the field, right? It might be by being the hardest worker on the field. And that guy who just gets on the field and gives everything to his team. And, when you were just telling that story, it kind of clicked for me that, I can see you and Landon instilling that in the players too. So it's not just about having an amazing day, but it's about building this tradition of hard work and respect and honor when you step on the field.
Yeah, for sure. And, you can have like sayings and different things like that, but you actually have to live them and do them. And we do have another saying that we try to live by, and it's one of Landon's favorite sayings. That's how you do anything is how you do everything. And so, like, we as coaches try to live that. So, like caring about the kit, making sure that, the guys clean up the locker room, making sure that we say, please, we instill upon them to say please and thank you to the bus driver or to whomever. So just, setting those traditions and those basic expectations of this is how we are going to be, an SD loyal player. This is what we're going to exemplify and embody, because that's important. And it's also, at the professional level, sometimes you don't always recruit, like you can bring in a star player and they can be really bad for your culture. And so we were very, 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 very aware of the types of players we wanted to bring in year one. Because you can have a bad locker room that doesn't gel well together, and that could just, tank you for a season. So we're in it for the long haul. So in year 5, we want the guys to know exactly, how we play, what our core values are, how we act, how we talk, how we, all of that, so that when we're gone, and Landon's doing gosh knows what, and I'm retired or whatever, that we've left something that's sustainable and that we can be really proud of.
Mm-hmm. What I love too about what you said is that often teams will bring on somebody like me, a leadership person, to help them create their values, but then those values stay on a wall, right? I mean, they're hanging up for everybody to see, but what you're describing is something completely different, that you're using those values as a way to create the culture. And another one of my favorite phrases is that behavior gets rewarded, gets repeated. And so every time you're giving out those bricks, every time that you're recognizing people based on those values, it's becoming more and more a part of who they are. And so that's got to create a completely different culture. I mean, when they're now saying the same things and treating each other that way, it's got to make a huge difference in their relationship, even on and off the field.
Yeah, for sure. And we've, our other assistant coach, Nate Miller, also brought something into the team that we started. It's called Tell Us About Yourself Tuesday. So each Tuesday, a player gets up, or a staff member. They had me go first, just so like we could give an example. So I put together a PowerPoint of like pictures, and basically I told my story to the team. And then whoever goes on Tuesday gets to pick the next person who goes. And like at the end of your talk, people get to ask you questions. So what we're trying to do with that, and it was a great call by Nate Miller, is be vulnerable to each other and like, talk about what's important to you on and off the field. And, like I told a story about how like I got let go from a job and couldn't find a job and had to go take a job at UPS. And I told them like this, long story. And I had players come over to me and go, you know what, like, wow, I'm really glad you shared that with me. And it's cool to, learn different things about your coaches and the players. And that's really taken off as well. The guys bring in some silly pictures and tell funny stories, and it's been a really good thing. So we're excited to get that going again, when we can actually see each other and all be in the same room together down the road.
I find that really interesting, right, Tom? Because we've talked about this, the idea of how that authenticity will breed trust, right? And as you begin to get different people being vulnerable and sharing and being authentic with one another, they begin to trust one another more.
Right.
And that's what we want on the field.
Yeah. And I'm wondering, Carrie, how would you respond to people who are hearing this going, okay, how does this work? Right. Because, very competitive. I mean, you got competition in your values. Yeah. You got these, athletes out there. They're the top of the top. I mean, obviously hard workers, risk takers, gritty. And yet you're using words like gratitude as a value, passion. I just heard you say vulnerable. What do you say to people who go, I don't know, how does that work in an elite soccer environment like this?
So to be honest, a lot of it comes from Landon being all of those things and showing, and him leading by example, and then all of us understanding that like it's okay to share struggles and failures and that stuff, even with male professional athletes. And a lot of the guys have shared a lot of stuff. I think you almost might fight harder and work harder for someone when you know that they're a real person and that they've gone through tragedy. Like one of our players shared, that like he grew up in a gang infested area, and his cousin, who was like his brother growing up, murdered someone and is in prison now. And he's like, I chose this path, and I am the first person to graduate college in my family, and I did this and I did this, and like this is who I am and this is where I'm from, and I will give my all to this team. And so when I think it's it sounds, some people are like, oh, that's weak or that's whatever, but it really, when you know someone better, then you know more about them. You can find out what motivates them. You can find out what's important to them, what their internal core values are. it just helps. It helps with connections, like I'm motivated by competition. If if someone tells me I can't do something, like that's just going to light a fire under me. So, so I work best by deadlines and competition and all of that. So, Landon knows that about me. So he's, like he knows how I tick and I know how he ticks. And, we're learning more about our players and what drives them. And, I don't know, it creates more of a family environment. Within a competitive cauldron, it creates a more family environment.
So does that idea of being authentic and having permission to be vulnerable in front of one another, does that actually remove fear? The idea of fear that the players are afraid to fail, right? Which is one of the things that hold people back often from reaching their full potential. This idea of being authentic and vulnerable allows the players then to not be fearful because they know each other have their backs.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing that's important. Like we've all failed. Like Landon got left off a World Cup team and he's very open about sharing that story and how he, cried for 2 weeks and really was depressed and took it hard. And, I've been fired from jobs and players have missed the PKs or been let go from teams. And so, I think when you break it down to a more human level, even if you tell a player, hey, you're not going to travel this weekend, as long as you're honest and they trust you, like, right. And you're not, you give them a reason why, or, hey, we're resting you, and they believe you because you've built that trust and just being open and honest. Again, that goes a long way, because the hope is, and we've seen it in a short time of, the players will battle for each other, and when people feel cared about, I think they're more apt to work harder for you.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant what you're doing, honestly, because
what we're doing, it's not me. It's not all me.
Yes, what your whole staff is doing, because from a positive psychology standpoint, one of the things that you realize, and it's research proven, is that 90% of your success in life is determined by how your brain sees the world, right? So it's about mindset. So that's where the success is. And I think so much for sports, especially, that teams put so much effort into the training, right? The performance and working hard, all very, very important. But I was just reading another book on coaching, and it said that they believe that 80% of success is not determined by what happens athletically. It's determined by all of these intangibles, right, that you're talking about, which is who are we, our values, our mindset, how we treat each other, how we create trust. So I'm wondering, how would you respond to that statistic, that 80% of your success as a team is determined by these kinds of things like mindset versus the athleticism and the training?
Yeah. I mean, you have to have that mindset to perform under pressure. You can be the most talented. We've all seen it, very talented players that when push comes to shove, maybe don't step up to the plate. And maybe that's out of fear. Maybe that's out of lack of confidence, or whatever the case may be. But again, having the mindset of, control what you can control. You're going to make mistakes. We're not going to, you're not going to be yelled at. You're not going to be told you're a horrible person. If you make a mistake or miss a shot, having trust that we believe in you, that's a big one. I mean, we had a situation, very first game of the year, home opener, Joe Greenspan, our, defender of the year last year in the USL, like, does his groin in the first 20 minutes of our home opener. And we were like, oh, okay, well, we didn't plan for this, but, we have Emra Clementa, one of our other center backs, like, we're like, hey, here's your chance. Let's go. Like, we believe in you. Get warmed up. Here are your assignments. Get on out there. And he went out there and he was amazing. And he did the job. And like, that's a situation where I think if he didn't feel that we believed in him, or he saw himself as like a backup sub, then I don't think he would have risen to the occasion. So, like we believe that our guys can do it. And we've, if we have to play two totally separate rosters, we have the guys prepped for that. So yeah, I think mindset is a huge, it can be a big benefit to the team that has that dialed in the most, I would say.
All right. So I want to jump into trust here, but I want to get your story. So,
okay. My story. All right.
And
what do you want to know?
Yes. So let's go way back, because I know that you weren't necessarily, or maybe you were, but it seemed like at least you weren't planning on being a coach. That you were really looking to go towards a medical background, career, right?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, this great opportunity comes along at Michigan, and you actually delayed your graduation. And so I'd love to hear that story, because that's really what started you off.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up playing soccer. I started coaching when I was 15, and then I went to Michigan, and at the time we didn't have a women's varsity soccer program, and so I played club, and then myself and my teammates pushed the university and went before the Board of Regents, and fought to get soccer elevated to the varsity level. So I was able to say that I was on team one as a player at the University of Michigan. And that whole process of when we were club, we had to fundraise our own money, we had to hire our own coach, we had to drive our own cars to games, we had to create our own schedule. There was a club national championship at the time, and we traveled twice and played in that. So we were almost like our own coach in a way, coaches, and that's where I think the pivot from going to medical school to actually going into coaching kind of stuck with me, because I enjoyed all that. I enjoyed, I was in charge of calling other schools and getting the schedule, and so there were things in that I really enjoyed. And so when I decided that I was not going to apply to medical school after taking the MCATs and having a biology undergrad, I said, yeah, I'm going to go into coaching. And I had gotten, a couple of the lower level licenses while I was in college, and was doing camps and all that, and coaching in the summer and all that stuff. So, yeah, I mean, I guess I never looked back. I took a small break for a while. And when I was in Cincinnati, I was a high school teacher for 4 years, and also a high school soccer coach at Milford High School. But I realized I was a soccer coach who taught, not a teacher who coached soccer. So I went back into college coaching and got to start a men's program at the College of Mount St. Joseph in 2005. So yeah, coaching's pretty much been it for me. It's my jam. It's my passion.
It's interesting. You've mentioned team one now a number of times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay? And team one at Michigan. And is there something about your mindset, Carrie, that kind of pushes you to innovate or to trend set, and be the first at new things?
Well, now that I'm old and I can look back at all those points in my life, there's got to be some sort of correlation. I think that, doing things that I'm driven when people tell me, no, you can't do that. And then I want to go, okay, I'm going to show you, or yeah, let's fight for it. So I'm drawn to projects and things that are risky, I would say. And I like that, okay, foot to the gas, let's go, let's figure it out. Let's make it happen. That's what kind of gets me out of bed in the morning, projects like that. So yeah, I mean, this is my third team one. So there's gotta be some sort of draw, some sort of affinity that I have for starting, getting involved in projects like this.
Yeah, I'm wondering, What is that? So, I mean, you're obviously a trailblazer, right? I mean, you're doing things that are way out in front, and I'm sure there's all kinds of things that come with that. When you're a trailblazer, you get lots of arrows in your back, but there's something about who you are. I mean, is there something that happened to you when you were, or an event or something that in your childhood maybe that has made you into the kind of person that you are today?
I don't think there's like one event that I can point to. I'm an only child, so I'm used to kind of creating things on my own, I guess, or like, putting my energy into one big thing. I don't know if that's a good way to say it. My mom tells a funny story to me. I don't remember doing this, but I guess my kindergarten teacher called my mom and dad one day and said, "Are you guys really hard on Carrie?" And my mom was like, "No, why?" And apparently, like, I used to sit and write stuff, and if I messed up, I would crumple it up and stomp over to the trash can and throw it away and then stomp back to my desk. I don't remember that. So I guess I've always kind of had that, like, let's just figure it out, like no problem's too big, no thing is insurmountable, and let's use our collective energy and go for it. So I mean, that's kind of, it's kind of just within me. And sometimes I can be stubborn, and sometimes that gets me in trouble, but as we all know, within sport, you have to have some of that determination and that drive, and you have to be okay with pushing boundaries and getting out of your comfort zones. So yeah.
And what was the path? So and I remember you grew up in Flint, Michigan, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And your whole life, I mean, up until graduation.
Yep.
I remember reading something about you saying that, maybe one of the reasons why you're so gritty is because of what you experienced growing up there.
Yeah.
What was that exactly?
Well, I mean, Flint is it's an inner city town. It gets a bad rap. It was a great place to grow up. I was very fortunate. Very grew up with people that didn't look like me, and so very multicultural city, but tough, working class. Auto industry was there, and then it went down, and crime was rampant, and people just had to learn how to survive, one way or another, and being in an environment where you have to figure out a way to say no to some things, and then also figure out a way to get out, I guess. I mean, not that living in Flint is bad, but I always knew that my way out was through sports and education, and so that was kind of my driving force. And it's a great city. I try to go back and do clinics there. I started a scholarship for a female athlete there in my city. And I mean, I'm proud of where I'm from, but it's definitely a tough place to grow up. It's definitely not San Diego where I live now.
So Carrie, you came through this environment in Flint, and obviously you've been very successful, right?
Yeah.
Was there ever a moment, either while you were growing up in Flint or when you got into Michigan, and you were beginning to be this trailblazer? Mm-hmm. Was there any ever a moment of doubt, where you had self-doubt, maybe you didn't think it was the right path, or you weren't up to it, and if there was, how did you deal with that?
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm not going to lie and say that I've never had any self-doubt. I've had a lot of self-doubt, actually. You just have to like talk your way through it and know that it's okay to fail. So yeah, I mean, I think that the hardest thing was, in one circumstance, was telling my dad that I wasn't going to go to medical school. That was that, threw me for a bit of a loop. And, he took that very, hard, and was like, okay, well, you're turning down the money like this for no money or whatever. And so that kind of kicked me in the teeth a little bit, I guess. And, I think looking back, like, I've always pushed myself to kind of get that next job and that next job and that next job. But I think every place that I've been, I do ask myself, like, can I do this? Or how am I going to do this? Even now, I mean, I'm coaching in a men's professional game. Like, I'm not going to lie and say that I haven't had self-doubt at times. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to be me, but maybe the players might react weird to me, and they've been great. And so, I think it's okay to doubt yourself at times. It's just how you get through that, and you just put the hard work in. So I anytime I doubt, I just like put my nose to the grindstone and try to work harder and let my work speak for itself. But yeah.
But you do allow yourself to have that self-doubt, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, it's human.
And that fuels you.
Yeah, no, it's human nature. And I mean, I will tell a quick story here about probably like one of the lowest moments of my career, and how I had to like get myself out of the doldrums. I had left California and I went to the Vancouver Whitecaps this was in 2011, to go work with at the time they had a women's team. So I was going to be an assistant with their women's team and coach their under 18 elite girls program, which is basically like a girls academy team. So I left a job here, had just won a national championship my U14 girls had just won a national championship, left a job, went up there. It was supposed to be a 2-year deal. Ended up, they discontinued their women's program. So my boss got let go. And then they told me, well, you're going to coach the under 18s until we find somebody else. So I was there 6 months. I like went from the highest high to having to come back to California, basically with my tail between my legs, going, okay, well, now what? So I found one club team to coach, and I needed another job. So I applied everywhere. Like, no one would hire me. I had friends who were college coaches that they're like, Carrie, you're overqualified. I'm not going to hire you as like a volunteer assistant or whatever. So I had to take a job at UPS. And it wasn't driving. It was unloading the semis at like 3 a.m. until you were done. And then they told me I was smart. And then they put me on sorting packages. I was 40 at the time, mind you. And then they were like, oh, you're really good. So now you can load trucks. So I literally, went from working for the Vancouver Whitecaps to being in the back of a UPS truck, putting packages on shelves in work boots and dirty clothes at 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m. And I had one of those moments, and I almost gave up coaching. I was like, it's taken me here, and now look where I'm at. Mm-hmm. So I remember literally being in the back of a UPS truck, bawling my eyes out. And I literally said, okay, Carrie, you have 2 choices. You can have a pity party and be miserable, or you can put your big girl pants on and use the mindset that has gotten you this far, that you've always used on the field as a player, that you've always used as a coach, and you can like flip the switch in your mind and just make it happen. So I literally told myself that, okay, you're going to come in and you're going to load those 4 trucks as fast as you can and make no mistakes. And you're going to then go finish, help the person next to you finish loading their trucks. And then you're going to do whatever you can to, like, they asked me to be on a safety committee. So I did everything I could. I was on the safety committee. I was, making sure everything was perfect. I was trying to be positive. And at the same time, I was like teaching coaching licenses on the weekends and getting 0 sleep and just, doing anything that I could do. And I ended up getting a club director job out of that, or like during that time. So I was at UPS for 8 months. And then when I told UPS I was leaving, they were like, "Oh, are you sure? We want to make you a supervisor." And I was like, no, thank you, but no, thank you. So like I shared that story with our players when we did our tell us about yourself Tuesday. And like that, that story actually resonated with I think a lot of the players. And that kind of speaks to why like just hard work to me is what gets me through. So
yeah, and it speaks directly to one of your quotes with the club now: how you do anything is how you do everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. It fits.
Carrie, did you, like, when you were doing those, you were in that UPS truck loading, what was your thoughts about going back to coaching? Did you still have a vision for that, or did you kind of feel like, oh, I don't know if this is ever going to happen again, or what was that like?
Yeah, so I was literally doing like ODP tryouts on the weekends, and doing teaching E and D licenses on the weekends. But I remember at the time like having a heart to heart with one of my mentors, and I said, I've made all these things, and I've been, like I've had a great career, and I really had a moment where I was like, I don't think I can do this anymore, because what do I have to show for it? Like I just got kicked in the teeth, and left a good job and went there, and I was just like, I don't know that I can do this. And he listened, and he actually just said, Carrie, he goes, if you give it up, the game will be losing a good person. And I took that and sat with it a while. And I was still applying for jobs. And when I got this director coaching job, at the time it was like 2012, I think. 2012, in that time frame. I called my mentor, and I was like, thank you for those words. I appreciate it. So, but then I got fired from that job 4 years later, and the next day I was sitting on the couch meeting Landon Donovan. So sometimes getting fired can be a good thing.
Wow, what a story of perseverance and grit, though. I mean, never give up.
Yeah, I got fired in a Starbucks on a Sunday, and Monday morning I was sitting on a couch next to Landon, going, "Hey, my name's Carrie. Nice to meet you." And here I am. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
And how did that happen now? Because that's a big jump, right? From working in the UPS truck, trying to do these coaching licenses on the weekend, and then getting fired, and boom, now there's Landon.
Yeah. So, sometimes luck, it comes your way. I happened to get invited to a meeting. At the time, Landon was in conversations with a group trying to bring a Major League Soccer team to San Diego. So this was March of 2017. And I happened to get invited to the meeting, and I rolled in the meeting, and the only seat open was on the couch next to Landon, and we started chatting. And back then, at the time, I was doing a podcast, and I was like, "Hey, do you want to be on my podcast?" And he said, "Sure." So, again, and that's the thing. If you don't ask, the answer is always no. So that's another little thing that I always try to live by is if you gotta sometimes go for things. And what's the worst thing someone could say is no. But yeah, so he and I struck up a friendship, and he brought me into the project to try to bring an MLS team to San Diego. So we worked hand in hand with a ton of other people trying to make that happen. And we failed. Like it didn't pass. We were trying, it had to go, it boiled down to the fact that we needed land, and the city owned the land, and there was a vote, and we lost the vote. But, again, that's another story of perseverance, where we worked for 2.5 years on that project, and it didn't happen. But during the course of that, Landon and I built that trust with one another. And so when the USL project started to come on the radar, he and I had a ton of conversations about it. And, in the beginning, I was going to be just an advisor, because I was out of soccer, and I wasn't sure that I wanted to get back in, because I was frankly, I was devastated after we lost the vote because we had worked so hard. But yeah, I guess good things come to those who wait. So it ended up being in some ways a better project because I think if we would have gotten the MLS team, I don't think Landon and I would be coaching together. I think it would have kind of gone down a little different. And so now sometimes, one door shuts and a different one opens. And so now, we're here and we've got a great staff and a great team. And, I'm grateful for the experience, and I'm grateful for Landon as a boss. And, I'm grateful for all the highs and lows as well, because without the lows, the highs don't mean that much. So, yeah.
Living out your core value of gratitude there.
Exactly.
So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about some of the challenges, because I know that I'm listening and I'm hearing the challenges of you getting to where you are and overcoming a lot of things. But also I can imagine the challenges the challenges don't stop, right? So
right
now you are paving the way, as we were talking, for coaching professionally in men's sports. I'm wondering what has that been for you, and what are some of the challenges that you've come up against, and how have you used that grit of yours to overcome those?
For this current situation, there haven't been that many personal challenges with it. I think part of the beauty, one of the things that I'm challenging myself to be better at is, sometimes you get to a position and you're the head of it. So then you're not around people that are actually going to challenge you to be better. So now, like within our team, we all have our strengths, and now, like Landon's good at this and Nate's really good at this and I'm good at that. And so we're all meshing our strengths together. So it's been a little bit different for me to kind of be an assistant again after having different roles, as head coach or a director of a club or things like that. So that's been new for me. But the challenge that I'm taking out of it is I try to learn new stuff every day from the guys, from Nate, from Landon, because coaching is ever evolving, the game is ever evolving, technology is ever evolving. So I want to keep pushing myself in those situations. The hope is that hopefully down the road, other people within the league decide to look at, other females in different roles, so that I won't be the only female. Whether or not that happens, I hope at least people kind of open their eyes and say, like, oh, if Landon's willing, to hire a female as an assistant, maybe it's worth taking a look at some different candidates. So
I love what Landon said too. I read, they asked him, so why did you hire a female? And he said, oh, that's easy. She was the most qualified for the job.
Yeah. And it's, and that's, like I said, it's an honor to work with him. And I teach him stuff. He teaches me stuff. Nate teaches us both stuff. We're always learning from each other. And, I think that is also, a mark of a good leader is, putting people around you that have different strengths than you, and you can all like help each other level up in deficiencies and things like that.
So let's jump back into this whole idea of trust, because one of the things I think that, I know Larry gets this a lot, I get it a lot, how trust is important. Okay. We know, I've heard you say it over and over, the trust that you've built with Landon and the trust with your players, and getting them to trust each other. How do you do it? Right. I mean, I hear you talking about values. Obviously you're really digging in there, but what advice would you give if I'm a coach listening to this? I want to build a trust-based team. And again, 1,000% believe that. Another research study, trust-based teams outperform non-trust-based teams by 286%. So I think it's primary. How are you doing that at San Diego Loyal?
There isn't there
No
isn't any
secret sauce?
magic. There isn't any magic formula. I mean, I think it boils down to, you know, if you say if your words match your actions and your actions match your words.
Hmm.
So like, you know, being honest with the players, or if somebody says why am I not playing, well, here's why you're not playing, or this is our plan for you. So doing what you say you're going to do. Like, we really don't have a fine system. We don't have a ton of rules. Like, we treat people like adults. If somebody wants to go out of town because they miss their family member, like, we talk to the players. We try to treat them like human beings. And I think that that inherently builds that trust. You can do team building things, you can do exercises, but it ultimately it has to be authentic. It can't be forced. I don't think it can be canned. And I also think that and we all know this as coaches, there's some players that you connect with. There's some players that I really connect with, that connect with me. There's some players that really connect with Nate, our assistant coach, or some players that really connect with Landon. And so being okay in allowing your staff to, be that touch point maybe for that player, and not have every player have to go through, one assistant, or go through the team manager to talk to the head coach or things like that. So just being real and creating connections and relationships and things like that. And, I think it's an amazing thing on the field, but what's really going to be hard is when, next year, when we let maybe a player go, and like, that's going to be really hard, because it's going to be like ripping out a piece of your family. But, this is a business, this is a team, and those are going to have to be some tough conversations down the road. But even so, those conversations will be probably easier because of how we've set up the environment up until this point.
I think that's critical. You're putting the care for the person first, right? And I think Pep Guardiola speaks about that a lot, right? About there's a person behind the jersey, and that we can't lose sight of that fact, that there is a person behind that jersey. And if you treat them with value, you treat them with care, with respect, then you have that opportunity to build trust. And once you build that, good things can happen, because we all know, right, in this business, bad things happen. You lose games. Yeah. Like you said, people get released and whatnot. But if you have that foundation of trust that you've built with the individuals on the team, you're in a really good spot.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, of all of those things, what would you say is the most important about what you do at San Diego Loyal? So in other words, we're talking about a lot, right? And so of all of those things, what would you say that as you've learned through this process, right? And I'm sure that now with all of the Zoom calls and digging in more relationally, I would think, with the players, because more time together in a different way. What would you consider one of the most important aspects of what you have used, that you have seen success in building this new club?
Oh gosh, that's a tough question. What's the most important? It's hard to say that, because it's like a holistic, puzzle piece of putting things together. It's, assembling the players and making them feel comfortable. It's taking care of the X's and O's. It's getting them to not worry about distractions. It's, treating each other and being prepared with our game plan. I mean, there's so many pieces that go into it, and everybody has their role and their responsibility. And I guess it's trying to get everyone to row the boat in the same direction, or keep all the energy on the bus positive, so that the bus gets there in the most efficient way, I guess. I don't know. That's such a tough question.
No, it's good. It's good. It's not easy, right? I mean, there's so many.
No, yeah. Yeah.
All right. So Larry's got a bigger question for you, but before he does that, you have this real sense of gratitude. I'm hearing it over and over, and even in the midst of adversity. And it ended up being one of your values. Why is gratitude something that's so important to you? Because it seems to be, it's not just a word, right? It seems to be a way of life, a way of seeing the world. But why is that so critical for you?
Well, for us as a team, I mean, like we get to make money, find joy in a sport, in something that we love, and our players get to live their passion and get paid for it. And there are, a million other jobs out there where people punch a clock or, just collect a paycheck and that's it. And they it's not their passion. I mean, and I really realized that working in the back of a UPS truck, and there are times, and trust me, I'm not perfect. There are times where sometimes Landon will look at me and go, Carrie, you could be working still in the back of a UPS truck. And I'm like, oh, you're right. Okay. I'm not going to worry about that problem. That's really not a big deal, And so, being, yes, we've all really worked hard to get where we're at, but also understanding that we have the best job in the world. We get to provide an entertainment for a community. We get to, have joy and compete and, get paid for it and give something back as well to the game that, we all love so much. So it's important to remember there's a lot worse jobs out there, and that we should enjoy it and be grateful for what we have.
Absolutely. And and then with the players too, is my last question here with that, is that you've got some incredibly talented players on your team. And so, I mean, I have 5 kids. All of them have played soccer. All different levels. And so, we've seen, we know how the journey works, right? But you get people who make it to that level, and obviously they have a high belief in themselves, as they should, but they know they're good, right? And so their talent has really led the way for them in many ways in their life. How do they embrace this value of yours of gratitude?
I think it comes from the guys that we've brought in. So, we looked at the type of players we're bringing in. We have 5 guys from San Diego. Sal Zizzo, who's been in MLS, who won a title with Atlanta United. He's our oldest player. So he was our first signing, and having people like him, Eric Avila, who's from San Diego, played at UC Santa Barbara, has played for Chivas, played all over the place. Bringing in good leadership, so that you have a balance of guys that have been there and maybe they're on the tail end of their career. So now they're more grateful for what they have. They know being a journeyman, what that takes. They know the highs, they know the lows, and they're excited to be here. Balancing that, with a group of players who's trying to fight to get to that, whatever that next level is, to get to MLS, to get wherever, and then a young group of players that are kind of just learning the ropes. So being able to blend all of those differences as far as background and experience, so that the older guys can impact the younger guys, and the younger guys can push the older guys so that they don't get too comfortable. So having that balance, again, for us was really important in year one, and not having some superstar come in and try to win the league in year one. I mean, we want to be uber competitive, but our goal was to build it slowly and correctly with the right people, and not just go, okay, who are the best 11 that we can get. And so, making sure that has happened on the team was really important for us.
So you made a cultural decision first, is what you did. You went out and found character of people that you wanted to impart in your club and then in the rest of the players.
Yeah. Well, and they're pretty good players too. So
Right.
that was important, but that we wanted the whole package, basically. We wanted the whole package.
Wow, that's great.
I love the idea of gratitude as one of your core values, though. There's something that happens to you physiologically, right? When you express gratitude and when you're grateful about something, it makes you feel good, you know. And if you can get your team to buy into that and to express that, it just makes them feel good, you know.
Yeah.
And that's an awful good place to start from, you know. I think it's really commendable that you've made that one of your core values.
We're trying.
All right. So the question of all questions here.
Oh goodness.
I don't know, Tom. You might have had the question of all questions.
Give me the one
in the world.
Yeah. Give me the one thing.
Yeah. Well, so maybe this kind of piggybacks off that a little bit, Carrie. I'm gonna try to paint a picture for everybody who's listening, right? And we'll see where this goes.
Okay.
You've just been appointed you are the men's national team, full national team head coach, right? You were appointed the position. You took the team through qualifying, the craziness of qualifying, the struggles, the different competitions, the logistics, the different environments that you're in, you know, through CONCACAF and whatnot, right? And you get through that, and you were kind of expected to get through that, right? You're expected to get through CONCACAF and make it through there. But incredibly now, you've gone to the World Cup. You've gotten through the initial stages, and you've made it all the way to the World Cup final. And it's the day of the World Cup final. The team goes out to warm up. You know, you're the head coach. Typically, the head coach kind of stays in the background a little bit as the team's warming up. But you decide you're going to take a peek out there, right? 100,000 people. You want to get a feel for it a little bit. The team's warming up well. They're sharp and warm up, right? You go back into the locker room to wait for them, right? They come back in, and usually they have somewhere between 10, 15 minutes, World Cup final, maybe 20 minutes before they go back out for the anthem and to play. The team comes back in the locker room. You give them their time, right? Now you have the last 5 minutes. You get the group together. The last thing you're going to say to them before they go out and hear their national anthem and play for a World Cup, what do you say to them? What's most important to you?
What's most important to me in that moment, what I would probably do is have them all stand up. We form our circle. You know, we got our arms around each other. The guys are looking each other in the eye, and I would probably say something along the lines of trust in each other, believe in each other, love each other, and let's go kick some ass.
There it is.
That's awesome.
There it is. There it is.
True to your values, right? Being true to your values.
There it is.
That's awesome. Well, Carrie, thank you so much for coming on. Getting to know you in this and just hearing your character and your heart and the vision and what you've been through. I see why you are where you are, why you've had so much success. It's incredible. So thank you very much for sharing that with us.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on. And, it's been a fun journey, and, I had a lot of great people and mentors along the way, and a lot of, ups and downs, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
That's awesome.
Fantastic.
Thanks so much, Carrie. You're awesome.
Yeah. Thanks,
we'll be cheering
guys.
for you. Can't wait for your season to start. You got fans.
Awesome.
All right.
We appreciate that. Thanks, guys.
You bet. Thanks so much,
Appreciate
Carrie.
your time.
All right. Take care now.
Okay.